How AI and technology are changing the architecture world. In this video, we're going to show you the top tools that architecture studios need to know in 2026. Architecture is going through the biggest transformation since the jump of hand drafting to CAD and CAD to BIM. The real question is this: are you ready for the tools that we define 2026? Because the firms that will adopt these tools will work faster, design smarter, and will outpace everyone else. Before we jump in, I'm organizing these tools based on the actual design process. I'm dividing these between pre-design or conceptual design, a schematic design, design development, or construction documents. The reason I'm doing this is so we can see exactly how AI and technology are making each of the phases more effectively and productive. This was a monster video to make and it took a long time, so the only thing I ask in return is you could please subscribe or like the video so you can get future notifications of my upcoming videos. So with that being said, let's start with pre-design. So the first thing in the pre-design or conceptual design is the due diligence. And thing here is when you're doing the research on your project. So whenever you're kind of doing zoning or summaries or site analysis, or even sometimes just putting a proposal out there, the best tools as of right now the ChatGPT or Gemini are great tools that they can help you really speed up the process. Especially when it comes to site analysis research, when you're trying to get those site limitations or the zoning or the general plan of a specific area, or when you're generating proposals for a specific competition or a specific project right now doing it. The good thing is they will give you that foundation that you need. They will take you to 80% there so you can kind of do the final edits. So I'm gonna give you an example. So the pro tip for this part of the due diligence is really to customize your own GPTs or Gemini or LLM to streamline the process of site analysis. By that I mean, for instance, right now we're working on a project in an office where there's a lot of residential projects in specific zones, areas. So we create a custom GPT that automatically replicates the process of what someone will need to do for them to generate a report on a site analysis, step by step. And some of the cities, what they have is maps that sometimes the LLM is not great reading, but the LLM can guide someone to do those things and give them the resources right away instead of them looking for those resources and spending 10-20 minutes looking for that link. So for instance, in this custom GPT, it already has automated the tasks. So for instance, once you kind of give it an address, it will automatically generate a link for you that you can go click on the link and it will automatically open the map that the city has, and you can just look at the zoning there and then put that same zoning that you already researched on the LLM. Then the LLM says, great, I registered that zone, let's go to the next step, and it will give you a link to another map that you can look at the general plan area. Once you kind of have that information, then with the LLM, once that you kind of is not relying on maps anymore, then the LLM can say, okay, based on the zoning and the general plan, I went to this specific site that you already was automated, and based on this, here are the height limitations, here are the setbacks, here's the parcel map information, and here are the the things that you need to look for. Here are the flow analysis or whatever it is. And it will automatically generate a PDF that you can download, and with that you can kind of use it as a reference. Now, the LLM is not always right, so it's always gonna make mistakes. So the way I tell project managers, think about it as if you have an assistant. The assistant is human and it can make mistakes. So you as a project manager or as the lead project coordinator, you need to just double check. Now, the important thing about this is that the LLM will already give you the resources right there. You can tell the LLM to list the resources to where it's getting that information from. Or you can just upload PDFs to tell it hey, whenever I ask you about height limitations or whatever, get it from this knowledge PDF that I already give you. So the LLM is going to list the information, and you can click on the source and it will automatically take you to the source that it's getting the information from. The great thing about it is that it saves you a lot of time already taking you to that link. And it happens sometimes where the LLM has done mistakes as far as the height limitation is 45 and the LLM says 50, but then I click on the source and it's just that it made the mistake because it took the section before the actual section that it should have taken in, and I just double checked that, and I was like, oh, okay, I adjusted to the specific building with just 50. The important thing is like it saved me like 50 to 20 minutes for me to go click on the link somewhere in the website and then trying to double check the section and all those things. So think about it as automating the process. So it's really helpful for that. I can save you hours on that thing. So that's the first thing, is due diligence. So let's go to the next one here. So on this one here, the pre-design, we're gonna also touch base on the visualization. So when you're in the conceptual design, just understand that a lot of that is based that there's not a lot of constraints, right? You're still in that phase of investigation where a lot of the images you're getting are not building, generally speaking, but they could be more abstract. The important thing is to spark the ideas with your team or with your client of just inspiration. So the important thing is to just create a prompt where you can have some knowledge on the area, but also the client's needs and inspirations and aspirations, as far as if it's inspiring music, or he likes eccentric art or something like that. And you can come with more artistic ideas that are used as concepts just to spark conversations. They're not meant to give you the design. They're meant to spark conversations of inspiration. A great tool that I use for this is Midjourney. And you can use other tools. There are many tools out there, but Midjourney is the one that I like to use, just because the model that it was trained is very good. Again, it's not based on just architecture, but that's the thing I'll use it for, because you are still in that conceptual phase where it doesn't matter that it's just trained for architecture. It could just be trained for everything, because you're still in that conceptual phase. And the pro tip on this one here is that you can create mood boards that could eventually, with time, could be your own brand, right? Like eventually, once you like a style that you would like to present your things, or you feel like there's a specific style that your clients respond better to, you can eventually save those images, create a mood board that every time you kind of come with ideas, you can eventually bring the style of the mood board in, and it will create like similar moods on that image, and that's when you start creating your own brand. So here is a quick video that we can look at on the mood boards here. So I'm gonna speed it up and we can kind of look at it really quick.
Section within Midjourney and click on My First Mood Board. From here, you can upload any images that you'd like, add them from a link, or select them directly from your Midjourney gallery. You can create a mood board with just a few images for something more focused, or even put hundreds for more diversity. To apply the mood board to a prompt, click the Use in Prompt button. The unique ID for your mood board will appear in the Imagine bar. Simply type your prompt, press enter, and head back to the Create page to see your results. Any mood board you use will show up below your prompt as a tag. You can click them to add them to new prompts, and also manage your mood board codes directly from the personalization menu located on the right side of the Imagine bar. From here, you can select a mood board to apply it automatically to any prompt, or even blend mood boards together by selecting multiple. For more manual control, keep the personalization toggle turned off, and add mood boards to your prompts individually.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to show you. So yeah, once you create your mood boards, you can save those and eventually have them available for you, or you can mix boards. So you can have one for watercolor, one for sketch render, one for photorealistic one. If you wanted to kind of, so once you kind of have the image with Midjourney, then you can modify it and stylize it accordingly. The last thing is like another one that I really like is Render, and the reason I like that one is because it's more trained on architecture specifically. So if you're ready to have like an idea of a building, or you have a sketch, it's great because it will respect more the structure. So let's see if I can click on the video here. So you can start with like a black and white or a sketch. So the reason why I like this one here, and there's so many other ones, but if you use the pro version of this one, or you use other ones like Krea, or Yendo AI or Prom AI, the good thing is like they are starting to link different LLMs. So you can use Nano Banana on that one, you can use Flux, you can use different models within that specific space. So they kind of become these broker that even though they have these architecture things, you can render it with different visualization AIs. So you can, within render area, you can use Nano Banana, Flux, and some other ones if you get the pro version. So that's the thing I really like about it. Okay, so now let's go to the pre-design code analysis. And with this one here is like, once you kind of have that and you already did your site analysis, you also need to do more like code analysis, as far as just now you have a mass. Now you need to kind of maybe start becoming more specific about things. And this kind of falls between that pre-design and schematic design process, where you are doing the more due diligence. And I like Upcodes because it's a platform, it's a cloud-based platform where you can have all codes in there. So if you, because you're getting a building through planning, you need like fire, you need like building and safety, you need a lot of these codes that sometimes you kind of have to go and hunt them. You don't know if they are the latest ones or there's amendments to those. So having one platform that is already has the most updated codes, and you can save folders on those, and you can have AI, like automated assistants where you can tell the AI of like, hey, I'm looking for this specific reference for this stair, and it can actually help you look for that. I think is very powerful. So let's see if I can get a link on this one here, and we can kind of see it very quickly here, so you know what I'm talking about.
To get started, you'll notice your Upcodes homepage. Think of this as your command center for code compliance, with all the tools you need to collaborate faster on projects, gain context on prior research, and staying ahead of jurisdiction and code updates. This homepage will grow with you as you research and collaborate with colleagues on projects. Upcodes provides seamless access to a jurisdiction's adopted codes and visibility into how the code has evolved. Upcodes hosts over 1,700 state and city codes and includes over 160,000 local amendments, so you and your team can be more productive and worry less about rework and code mistakes. On average,
yeah, so in general, the thing I also love about Upcodes is that they have diagrams that are not necessarily part of the code, but they are diagrams that really explain the code, and they are easy to understand. And a lot of times you can use those diagrams to explain, to put it as your reference in your construction document, saying like, hey, you know, like this is what I'm talking about, or things like that. So I think I found it very useful. And because this is the thing, once you kind of have a folder in place that a lot of the architecture, especially smaller architecture firms, they have like 20 residential buildings in 1 year, and all of them are within specific, very close areas. So once you generate a folder of these codes, you can duplicate these folders and reuse those codes, or at least the majority of them. So you already know the sections, you already did all the due diligence at the beginning as far as organizing them. So the person that comes in the different project can duplicate that folder and already has that, and maybe has to kind of do some tweaks here and there, but already saves you a lot of time. Another tool for the pre-design process, and this is more for the idea sharing and concept, is Miro. I really like Miro. This is a tool that I love using, and it mainly is for presentation. And just think about it as a peanut board. Back in the days when people would put their design inspiration ideas on the wall and just get ideas, but the good thing here is that you can actually record these ones here, and you can use it for your time, for meetings with your team, right? So whenever somebody comes with ideas, sketches, everybody's kind of trying to kind of do, sometimes, for instance, in office I'm working with, once a week we kind of all get together and see a project that somebody's working on, and we kind of start giving ideas or different explanations and everything, and it will be great to have a Miro board in there so we can record the comments. People can actually go and type things, could draw on them, so it's great to have those recordings. At the same time, you can use it to have conversations with your clients, where your clients can collaborate and send you ideas. As far as like, I know there was a client that sent us, he really liked some stairs, and he will email us that, but then after like a few months, we were like, oh, remember where were those stairs? And now you have to go and trying to fish an email here and there. But if you have a Miro board and you keep those on the Miro and you always have them there available, you don't have to go try to hunt a folder that the client gave you months ago, but it's just part of the process. And then the client also feels like he's part of the design process too, and I feel like it will make clients and teams happier, and it's just an easy way to work. So a tip here would be to combine these code analysis, visualizations, and research tools in one, which will be Miro board, to enhance those workshops and streamline the communication process. And then, so what are the key elements? So the tools that you really need to know in the conceptual phase are, first of all, the research ones are the Gemini or ChatGPT. Those are the ones that you really want to master and custom, and automate that process. The other ones will be Midjourney, and another one that is becoming famous, Nano Banana, but I would recommend Rent Air, just because with the Pro version, you have the Nano Banana and the Flux, and you have many LLM AIs that can visualize that. So, but Midjourney is my favorite. If you have to pick one, I would say Midjourney, pick Midjourney, or pick Rent Air, depending on your necessity. If you are specifically using it more for art and just that specific very beginning concept, I think Midjourney. If you normally are in your workflow is normally at the beginning of the process, you already have like a building or a mass, I would say probably you want to go more for AIs that are trained already in architectural models like Rent Air or Krea or Prom AI or Yendo AI. Opcodes, I think opcodes is a must unless you already have a really good system in place and you are not generating a lot of repetitive tasks with code analysis. I think opcodes is a must. And then Miro, again, Miro a lot of people will think is a nice thing to have. I think it's one of these things where, like, if you're an architecture firm and you really want to offer top-notch service and you are really focused on design and making it more meaningful and really analyzing, you're really that firm that really analyzes design, I think Miro is a great collaboration tool. If there's not a lot of communication in your firm where everybody just has one project, nobody talks about it, is not shared too much, that's fine. Maybe Miro is just a nice thing to have, but I do feel like I see so many benefits with Miro. So what is the pro tip and my conclusion on the pre-design or the conceptual design is really that all these tools help you to not just streamline the process and help you move faster, but also enhance the communication process with your clients, with your team, and you just with yourself create better design products in a way. Like, you're still a designer, it just enhances to spark ideas and have better communication with your clients so you can have better projects too. So with that being said, that's the pre-design, and now we can move to the schematic design.
Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about the schematic design. So with this one here, let's start a little bit with the mass model and the feasibility. Right, so let's start with projects that are a little bit more on the bigger scale. So these tools, Finch 3D and TestFit, I believe they're great when you have bigger projects, like you have multifamily buildings or you have something more in that urban scale, that maybe hotels or things that are really required have a lot of units. Because Finch 3D and TestFit are tools that allow you to explore a lot of ideas when it comes to plans or when it comes to the forms of the building and shapes, but allows you to kind of have that computational design of just keeping the same form. So let me show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Now, so let's start with Finch 3D. So you see how depending on the constraints that you give it, right, it will alter and give you different floor plans, right? And you can put some parameters with it. All right, so that's on Finch. Let's go a little bit and see TestFit. TestFit, I don't know if that like and the great thing about these tools is, like, you can implement constraints, so you are able to implement things like zoning, setbacks, parking ratios, and things like that. So it makes it smart. At the same time, they are coming up with AI tools and computational design parameters that you can alter. And they have great customer service in the sense that they have this continuing education online that you can use, because a lot of these tools, even though they're great and they seem very easy to use, it still require a little bit of that. They're a little steep to learn, at least in my experience with TestFit, just because you still need to now, first of all, you still need to know, you want to use it the right way. You really need to know a little bit on your zonings and your parameters so you can set the rules, and then being able to get the most out of the software. So my pro tip, if you're going to be using one of these tools, is to really combine these with a 3D modeling tool that you can have a little bit more control on the form. Kind of work along with this, right? Like, test it, see the feasibility, see if it works, and then you can bring that to, you can kind of sketch them from kind of based on that mass model that is working for you. Then you can hand sketch things, or you can move it to a 3D modeling tool that you can actually now represent that with a little more control. So now let's go to the next one. So on this one here, we're going to be focusing on 3D model and the visualization aspects of the schematic design, because here's where you're finally starting to get more detail and the building is finally starting to take form. So my main recommendation, I think for a small design studio, that it's not coming with these like super huge high rendering, like high quality renderings, but it still wants a really good quality, but at the same time wants that easy to use tool. I think Enscape is extremely useful in the sense that it gives me very like high quality images, but it's very easy to use and it integrates really well with BIM software. So if you're using Revit or you're using ArchiCAD or Vectorworks, it integrates with those It's kind of in a way has its own rendering window. So for instance, if you're using DeFi Render or Twinmotion or one of those, you will have to create a new file, and still you can sync the screens, but it's still another file that you're having to save in a folder and things like that. Whereas Enscape is more like a rendering window, right? That it opens and it renders from there, even though it's real-time rendering. Another thing that I really like is Enscape comes with a Cosmos library, and along with not just the library components, it also comes with materials that you can bring those to Revit or ArchiCAD. And a lot of the 3D model would actually live in the BIM software or in the 3D model, which is Rhino or Enscape. It works like with those two, and it will live in that modeling tool. Whereas if you use the other tools, the model, the asset that you're bringing, whether it's a tree or whatever, it lives in Twinmotion or in DeFi Render. Whereas in Enscape, it lives in your actual 3D modeling tool. And I think that's pretty cool, because sometimes you do wanna, when you're working on plans or something like that, and you are working on 2D, sometimes you do wanna see it's easy to place it that way or to rotate it, and it just facilitates that. So I think it's very user friendly. The dialogue that is used is also pretty useful. So let's see. And now the great thing is like it's combined with Veras. I think that's very powerful, because if you recall, in the pre-design phase, we did talk about these LLMs that are trained for architecture. And I feel like in my opinion, if you're going to get one of those LLMs trained for architecture, and you're also trying to find a way of doing like a real-time rendering, I do feel that Enscape and Veras are very good compatible, because Veras lives within Enscape too. So the great thing is, like, for instance, if you're an ArchiCAD user, and I believe you are a Revit user, Veras also, you can use it directly from those softwares. So you can have a 3D view in ArchiCAD and do Veras right away. But the way I see it working better is when you are open Veras in Enscape. Now, the great thing about combining Enscape with Veras is that for Veras, it's a lot easier to read those images that is coming from Enscape, just because if you think about it, in the back end, the AI is trying to divide these things as understanding these images as masks. And the Veras, whenever it's coming from Enscape or 3D modeling software, is understanding materials, is understanding depth. A lot of times is understanding, what things are, rather than you just give it an image. But in this one here, it has more tools that it can kind of understand the image better. So, and not just that, but with the Enscape, you can really have that ability of having the virtual tours and having VR with your clients. It's also very easy to share. So once you kind of have a virtual tour set up, you can send just a link, and your client is just going to be able to open up that, and that's it. Something that would drive me crazy was me as an ArchiCAD user. Sometimes I will use BMX, and BMX is pretty decent, but sometimes they need an app, or they need this, and sometimes it's not easier to navigate in a computer. It's a lot easier to navigate in an iPad. So and the render quality, even though it's good, is not nearly as good as a real-time rendering. So I do want to say that I prefer Enscape and Veras. Like, again, if you're in that phase, I think you definitely want to check out Enscape and Veras. DeFi Render, I really like this one here too, because it's also real-time rendering. It also has AI tools. They can help you stylize things. And I think DeFi Render, the thing I really like about it is that it has a much robust library of components and assets, trees, people. It has so many components on that, and I think in that case, and materials, and I think in that way it's better than Enscape in that specific aspect of it. I think it has a lot more potential to generate higher quality renderings. Now, again, if your goal with your small design firm is to generate really good renderings, but have that compensation of renderings, but also being versatile and easy to use, I think Enscape is the way to go. If you are in a point where, like, you're also doing animations and you're really looking for very high-end renderings and things like that, I do want to say, like, in my opinion, DeFi Render is the best way to go. And the reason I'm not a fan, for instance, I know like a lot of people are talking Unreal Engine, and I did use Unreal Engine for a little while. And the thing I didn't like is that it's not easy to use, right? And if you have a team, and because this is dedicated more for small design studios, if you don't have somebody dedicated to nourish Unreal Engine as far as the libraries and making it sort of user-friendly and understanding what's lumen and what's baking light and things like that, it could get very technical and very complicated. So I would suggest if you have Unreal Engine, it's mostly like if you have a team of visualizers in your company. But if you don't have that, if you need something that is easy to use but give you very high quality renderings, you can use any of Enscape or DeFi Render. Now that they have the AI enhancers and AI styles and things like that, they can compensate a lot of that quality. And again, with DeFi Render, you have other tools like Lumion and Twinmotion that are also pretty decent. And then finally, here's where we get very interesting, and I think this is one of the most important ones, is let's look a little bit of the DeFi Render before we go there.
3D rendering will never be the same after this. DeFi Render just dropped its biggest update with over 10 powerful AI tools like the DeFi Agent and in-app assistant that designs custom vegetation on your site based on your location and climate. And these can be exported further as planned schedules. Create high-quality PBR materials from any reference image and add it directly onto your model with the AI PBR Material Snap. The advanced brush allows to draw freehand on any surface and generates elements with a scatter. And it's fully customizable to edit and modify further. Plus, we now have the parallel projection, custom path tool, CCM integration, and tons of other massive features. A detailed video of all these updates and the download link is in our channel.
Yes, and it has been very, and now that it has these DeFi Render, if you know how to use it with practice, and you can really save a lot of time, because now it has these AI tools that can help you generate a lot of those plans and things like that and materials right away. So I do feel like you can get really high quality renderings from these tools without you really having to go crazy with whoever's telling you you need Unreal Engine. So now let's go a little bit with the BIM and the 3D modeling tools. I think a lot of these is very personal depending on your design floor that you have in your company, because you definitely need a BIM software. And I do feel like the standard is Revit, whether you like it or not. If you're working with companies that you're going to require a lot of sync with your consultants and things like that, you definitely want to go with Revit, just because that's the industry standard. And at the same time, it's very good for documentation. If you are not necessarily sharing your model that often with a consultant at all, then you can go a little bit more into ArchiCAD or Vectorworks and explore those a little bit more. I do agree that ArchiCAD might have a little easier to be a little bit better to use as far as how easier it is to model and have a better, let's say, quality drawing. But I think as far as working with our consultants and just easy of the standard of use, I think Revit it's also another great decision. And a lot of the plugins that are coming up where it comes with AI or computational design are trying to cater to Revit too. So that's also a good thing. Whereas those are not necessarily catered to Vectorworks or ArchiCAD. So that's another great thing of being the standard. When it comes to 3D modeling tool, my opinion is that if you are a company that does a lot of interior design and at the same time you don't want to get things too complicated and you're not using a lot of parametric forms, I think SketchUp is a great option. But for what other reason you are doing a lot of 3D model, you want to explore a lot of things, and you normally tend to stay a little bit away of the just generic rectilinear forms, I think Rhino is a great way to go. And then later on, if you combine it with Grasshopper, it has a lot more potential. But those are the tools that you really want to have in your arsenal in the schematic design. So now let's go to the next tool, which is the BIM 2.0 and the computational design. And this one here is interesting because BIM 2.0 is pretty much being born from all the negativity that is coming from BIM, right? Because even though BIM is great for construction documentation and stuff, it's not good at a lot of other things. And it's because the software is in a way complicated, and it has so many things to handle that it's hard to do everything right? So I'm gonna tell you this. For instance, me as an ArchiCAD user, I think ArchiCAD is pretty good for construction documents as far as generating floor plans and plans in general. But when it comes to libraries, or when it comes to keynotes, or when it comes to, again, the AI visualizers and things like that, it's not great at all. When it comes to renderings or generating images, it's not, their tools is not amazing. So a lot of these BIM 2.0 tools that are coming up are coming from these. Like, they're really good at what the current Revit or ArchiCAD are not good at. So for instance, one of them is Snapshot. And Snapshot is really good for that pre-design and schematic design phase, where it generates really good design concepts and at the same time gives you great data sheets. So for instance, if you're working on a hospital or you're working on hotels or things that have a lot of units, and it requires you to have spreadsheets to know how many of these are you using, what's the areas and things like that. Snapshot is a great option that is coming from there. And I think last time I talked to them, a lot of the clients they had were hospitals, people that were involved in hospitals. So let's look at it really quick. And yes, I mean, a little bit like Finch and TestFit, Snapshot is really good when you have these bigger scale projects. Now, Grasshopper is another tool. It's more computational design, and this is more for parametric shapes. And the great thing about Grasshopper is that a lot of people are giving it a lot of interest because you can create a lot of things from it. You cannot just create parametric shapes, but you can create parametric systems. A little bit of what you see in Snapshot, a little bit of what you see in TestFit or Finch. Literally, the background is something that you could replicate with Rhino and Grasshopper if you know how to use it well. So that's what I'm saying. The potential of somebody knowing well Grasshopper with Rhino is immense, and that's my recommendation. Later on, you're gonna see my recommendations, but that's something to look at. And then you have Ryan, which I think Ryan is also has become really popular for 2D architectural drawings. I think they excel at that. They don't do really 3D as of right now, but they are really good at architectural drawings. And if you're like me, where a few years ago I used to work in a company where they used to do a lot of K-12 buildings, and the first months was really just figuring out the programming and the floor plans. We never focused on the design as far as the elevations or how does it look from the outside of the mass modeling. No, I mean, a lot of that was really just the programming and figuring out the programming along with the floor plan. So if that's you have a lot of projects like that, I think Ryan is going to be a great benefit to you because you can generate really fast and good looking drawings, and he has a great library. So you have a lot of beds or furniture that actually looks pretty decent. So now we're going to go and we're going to give you my final recommendations here. So here are the tools that you really need to know in 2026. So if you are the kind of company that works with large scale buildings, again, multifamily, hotels, hospitals, you really want to start exploring Finch 3D, TestFit, Giraffe, and Snapshot. Let's click here on Giraffe. I think you're going to see, guys, very similar to what we saw on TestFit here. But you see, it's really more like for urban planning. Yeah, but that's pretty much that if you're really in those types of that. But I think whenever you start kind of going into, if you're the type of company that is a small design studio, but let's say 80% of your work is residential, and then you do have commercial buildings, but they're a little bit more restaurants or smaller scale, I think rather than testing a Snapshot, Finch, or TestFit, I think you really want to hone in on, besides your BIM software, you really want to hone in on a 3D modeling tool. For instance, if you're a company that is, really also starts focusing on interior design, rather, so you do the buildings, but you want to offer your clients also more interior design alternatives or things like that, you might want to start exploring SketchUp, just because it's a lot easier to use too. As far as modeling, the learning curve to learn SketchUp is not that hard. And if you integrate that with a real-time rendering like Enscape, you can have really nice interior renderings without you having to modify, with you having to put more clutter in your BIM software and making it look nicer for renderings. I think if you're in a company that it's kind of staying a little bit away from the rectilinear forms and kind of doing a little bit something more, let's say, dramatic or parametric, I think Rhino and Grasshopper is the way to go. Just because Rhino has the same, if not better, capabilities than SketchUp when it comes to 3D modeling, but if you combine it with Grasshopper, then the potential is insane of what you can model and can show and can portray, depending also again on your workflow. Now, if you're a company that and if you like to explore a lot in the schematic design, the forms and the shapes and the concepts and stuff like that, I think Grasshopper and Rhino are the way to go. Well, especially Rhino as a 3D modeling tool. Grasshopper will be more like computational design. But if you are the kind of company that you don't spend too much time because exploring the masses and the forms of the building, and you're not necessarily also doing interior design work or anything like that, and generally speaking, your workflow is that you already start with an idea, with a plan, and you want to develop that as fast as you can for it to kind of go to planning and things like that, then there's nothing wrong with starting with a BIM software like Revit or ArchiCAD. Just know that it has a lot more less playfulness at the beginning, right? So it's more like you already have an idea in mind and the building is not that complex, then it's okay to start with BIM. But I would definitely recommend you to, think about like implementing a 3D modeling tool just as a potential of other projects and capabilities that you might be able to showcase. And then lastly, Ryan, like I think, again, if you are in these type of buildings or these type of projects that a lot of it requires, first of all, to figure out the programming, and you don't have the time to be modeling and changing, then I think Ryan is a great way to figure out the programming and the floor plan and then bring that to BIM or a 3D modeling tool. So I think that's my final recommendation. I think my pro tip would be to combine one 3D modeling tool along with your BIM software and one AI or computational design tool. Again, in my opinion, if you're a small company and you're not getting those huge multifamily projects, I would stick with, it could be just Revit, Rhino, Grasshopper, and I'll stick it like that. But again, it really comes down, it's very personal, and it really comes down to design workflow. Okay, so with that being said, we can go ahead and start with design development. Okay, so let's start with the design development phase here. And a lot of the tools that we're gonna see on this one, you're gonna realize that are very similar to the ones that we already saw on the previous phases. And the main reason here is just for me to emphasize why are these tools important still for the design development and the other phases. But most of the tools really have already been explained in the other phases. These ones here is a complement. Here is the design development is finally the phase where BIM starts to take in that main role, especially in the digital world, right? In the document construction and setting up plans and all those things, where BIM is really the main component on it. So a lot of the tools beside BIM are really more like enhancing or complementing what BIM is not able to do. Well, let's say, for instance, you have client meetings and you want to have some sort of visual presentation, or you need to show some renderings for planning or stakeholders meetings, or you just need to speed up your process and creating maybe some AI renderings, or you just want to speed up your process and use AI agents to create tables or make you select all the furniture or select all the windows. So you can complement AI agents, AI tools to help you speed up the processes too. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about that. Again, the main software here at this point is BIM. So you really at this point are using Revit or ArchiCAD or Vectorworks, and then you are combining it with a real-time engine, which could help you to again have these presentations with stakeholders or create renderings. With that, you can implement Enscape. You can implement DeFi render, you can implement any sort of rendering, but it's good that you have a good quality real-time rendering so you can showcase these to have better conversations with clients, stakeholders, and even planning. It's great to have AI enhancement tools because, for instance, recently we submitted a project here with one of the companies that I'm working with, and because it's a big multifamily building, they didn't really want it to have photorealistic rendering because we're still in the planning phase and we didn't want to scare everybody, right? We're still figuring out materials and everything. So something we were thinking about is okay, how can we make it look more like watercolory, more like sketched, so it looks a little warmer, so we don't have to be too specific on the building design, right? Because we're still in the schematic phase and we're just getting into that. So a way we did this is we did the rendering photorealism in real-time rendering, but we were able to stylize it in a watercoloring and sketch render. And with that, we place it in Photoshop, we blend the masks together, and we end up with a very nice looking rendering that it's not photorealistic, and it's nice for the phase that we are. So that's something to consider. So like a really pro tip that I have also, for instance, if you can speed up the process, not just in the visualization aspect of it, but for the productivity aspect of it, with all the Revit or ArchiCAD and all these, even like the real-time renderings have AI agents now that are kind of like chatbots. So they are kind of like, see, I like LLM trained in that specific model. So for instance, if you don't know, I'm modeling something and I really don't remember how to create a window that has an arch, I can just ask the chatbot, and the chatbot is like, hey, yeah, just go to edit and do this and that, rather than me just to kind of go into YouTube or somewhere else and trying to go to Reddit and trying to find the solution. The chatbot is there to explain to me. Or if I go and say, hey, how do I select all the windows at once? Or hey, can you select all the windows for me that are on the first floor? The chatbot does it for you instead of you having to go ahead and remember the command of selecting all the elements and all these things. So the chatbots can really start playing a good role on saving more time and make the process more effective. And a lot of this is pretty much explain what I just told you right now. But with the visual ideation and presentations here, think about it more on not the scope of just presenting drawings for plans, but during this phase, you are doing a lot of dialogue also with consultants, with your clients, and you want to make sure that you present always your best foot forward. And with that, you really want to kind of start leveraging these real-time renderings and visualization tools to kind of potentially give you still renderings, animations, VR, and then you can also stand up out of the competition to where you offer better services too. And these are tools that are not taking you a whole day to do, right? Once you have the BIM model in place, yes, you have to still put it on a project and still do the finishes and still making it look nice, but it doesn't substantially increase the budget by a lot, right? If you do a few more renderings. The documentation and coordination of this one is very important because, for instance, everything has turned cloud-based now. So it's the great because now it's not just one person having to. I remember when I was working on my first office, we were working in AutoCAD, and I remember that only one person could work in that project, right? So for somebody else to work on that project, you needed to sometimes even export, like give him the export of the CAD, but also give him the export of the layers, and the person had to, hopefully the layers will import so he could see exactly where you were looking at. Whereas now everything is cloud-based, meaning like you can still work from your desktop, but you can also work on the cloud. So for instance, if you know that you have several people working on a specific project, you can upload that document, whether it's Revit, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, to a cloud, to where multiple people can be working on the same project at once. So make the process a lot faster. Now you can even coordinate to where like consultants can be working on that same cloud, right? As long as they have the same software, and they can do work there together. So for instance, in one of the offices that we're working on, we have the structural engineer that has the same software. In this case, we're using ArchiCAD. They have ArchiCAD. They have a small team that uses ArchiCAD for structural. So they are able to coordinate all the structural drawings into ArchiCAD. So, and we're using it with BIM Cloud. So we know exactly where the structure is, and they're working on the drawings in ArchiCAD. So it's great to see that. So that's a great thing. So you definitely need to consider you're working a small business and you haven't really made that leap of working on the cloud. You really need to start doing that because multiple people working there at once, also having potentially consultants working there too. And Revit has even a better environment in the sense that more people use Revit. So you definitely want to be working on that documentation and coordination on the cloud. And now what is getting more popular now is like, because before, like, you couldn't really share the file in the same file, let's call it, unless two consultants have exactly the same software. Like if I have Revit and the other person has Revit, then great, we might be able to bring that in. But if I have ArchiCAD and the other person has Revit, then I might need to create an IFC, send the IFC. By the time they get the IFC and they coordinate it, then there might be also other changes we already did, but I'm not going to give him that IFC until they ask, which is probably a few months after that. So it becomes a very small process. But for instance, this new tool here, let me show you guys this one.
If you're using Speckle, pay attention because we're doing a major revamp to our connectors. Going fast. We had 22 connectors for 54 software versions. That's almost 3,000 connections we had to test and support with less than 10 engineers. It's unsustainable for us and confusing for you. But we're the most excited to announce 3 super clear and super powerful workflows. The first workflow is what you already know and love, a multiplayer modeling workflow where you can publish and load objects between different applications as if they were modeled natively. We'll carefully add this workflow to each connector, and when we do,
so what they are doing really is putting everything on, think about it as coordinating everything on a specific environment where you can bring your Revit model, you can bring, somebody else can bring a Rhino model, I can bring my ArchiCAD model, and we can combine it in there, and we can update the changes in there, so you can at all times see the latest version of somebody else's updates in that model. And then you can make changes in that same model, but while at the same time, you know, you can use it for client presentations and things like that. So I think Speckle has, especially you're working in projects that require a lot of coordination and you have a lot of consultants and have like highly complex projects where, again, you're working with hospitals and you're working with things like that. I think that's something that you probably really need to consider. You can still work on a smaller scale with, like, for instance, if you have one residence, but you know that you're working with structural and mechanical, and you want to coordinate them all in one project, you can use Speckle too. So it's just a matter of bringing everybody to an environment despite the software that you use, and I think that's a very good idea. Now we're gonna go to the tools to really know on this one here, and of course you need to know BIM software. That's, as me saying, like, that's the foundation of everything. So Revit, I really recommend you to learn a little bit more about Speckle, because if you really work with consultants and you know that the majority of the consultants that you've been working on, they use Revit or ArchiCAD or at least a sort of a 3D model, bringing them into Speckle, and first of all, you trying to use it within your company and learning the basics of how to use it, and then trying to bring that into other people's, rather than you trying to bring AFCs and stuff like that. I think Speckle has a great potential. As I mentioned before, I really recommend Rhino and Grasshopper. I know, like, there was a connection with ArchiCAD and Grasshopper, but you had to also have Rhino open. And I know that Revit is using the same thing. So if you are the kind of person that is doing a lot of custom stuff, whether it's whole buildings or just custom panels or perforated metal panels that have parametric forms, I think exploring the connections between BIM and 3D modeling tools are very powerful too. Now a lot of plugins are starting to come out. So there's this plugin from Rhino Grasshopper to Revit and Rhino Grasshopper to ArchiCAD. So I'll recommend you to explore those. For presentations, especially site presentations, like if you're doing a renovation or something of a place that is existing, I would really recommend you to use VR capabilities. Stands for virtual reality, or virtual tours even. Like, I think virtual tours is really what I mean. And it's very easy to create with Enscape, and I know that DeFi Render and Twinmotion have also the VR capabilities. So really start exploring those, and how can you make the meetings more interactive whenever you go to a site and you're able to get your virtual tour and be able to kind of go with your phone exactly where that same area is and be able to showcase that to your client right away on site. Is very powerful, but it just takes a little bit of practice to learn that tool. And then the AI renderings, DeFi Render, I would recommend DeFi Renders if you want to start kind of getting more like AI powerful tools along with Enscape too, and start getting more high quality renderings there. So I would say make sure to master one BIM tool and implement one real-time rendering tool that has AI capabilities. Learn about the AI agents that each tool can use, and now we're gonna go to some other tools finally. Because now we're going to go to construction documents. Now we're going more into the management side. So stay in the video, because now we're going to see more newer tools that you haven't seen before. So I'll see you right now in construction documentation. This is the last phase that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm very excited about this one, because these ones here were actually touching base on new tools that, besides the ones that I've been showing you. I think a lot of the previous ones were really more focused on the modeling and the visualization part and how to make the process more efficient. But once you kind of get to the construction documents and administration, I'm going to touch base on tools that are more focused on the editing and revisions, which I know that some of these tools are gonna also be part of the schematic and design development of the process, but I just wanted to include them at this phase because here's where you really have they are the main things to use here. So besides, of course, BIM, but here's when project management starts becoming a lot more important, right? More and more visible. So I think on this phase, you really want to start kind of touching base on tools that are help you streamline the editing process. And multiple people can work on the same project or do their revisions on the same project. And then also kind of keep track of the project budget, of the project timeline, and the administration phase. So you really start kind of want to get that. And my pro tip here is that there's a lot of project management tools out there, but there's a few of them that are specifically dedicated to the AEC industry and can kind of help us understand a little bit better the language, or they have extra few tools that might be specifically related to architecture, and I really recommend you to investigate those, and I'll show you a few of those here. But those are the ones that I recommend because they have more clients that are in the AEC industry and they can understand better our current problems and circumstances. So with that being said, let's go to the next one here. So here we're going to discuss a little bit on the workflow decisions and actions. So the first tool that I really recommend is Bluebeam, and I don't know how many of you guys don't use Bluebeam. I know that the other tool that a lot of people use is Acrobat. And I think recently I saw that they are starting to come out with the Acrobat Pro. The only thing I can say, guys, is like it's hard for me to work with Acrobat. It's just when I start using Bluebeam, it automatically changed my life as far as productivity goes because it just has a lot more tools that are specifically related to architecture, or I'm gonna say construction and engineering and the AEC industry, where you can scale drawings. It is a lot easier to get notes, and I think I'm gonna have a video here maybe that I can show you guys. I don't know.
Construction is complicated. You've got endless documents to track, complex drawings to review, and a whole lot of people who need the latest information yesterday. Unfortunately, too many teams are still stuck using yesterday's solutions, turning your projects into, well, absolute chaos. Thankfully, there's a better way to build. Bluebeam is the industry standard solution for PDF markups, digital workflows, and effective project collaboration. Think of it like a magic toolbox made by and for industry pros like you. You can mark up 2D or 3D PDFs with customizable tools for every trade. Save and share your favorite markups to speed up your next project. And track every change so everyone's always on the same page. Literally. Bluebeam gives you the freedom to work your way. Keep all your documents and data up to date with automation. Or build custom workflows that simplify tasks from start to finish. From takeoffs to site logistics, RFIs, and everything in between. It's also your virtual project room for real-time collaboration. Invite teams to mark up and measure together at the same time. And get the latest updates whenever you need them. Oh, and we made getting started easy too, with tons of resources to get teams up to speed. And you'll also get ongoing product enhancements suggested by customers like you, so you can keep building better all the time. But that's just the start of what Bluebeam can do for you. Ready to make life a lot easier?
Okay, I'll let it play the whole video because it was very explanatory, and I don't know if I can explain it better, but it is a coordination where you can not just work within your company, but you can work with other consultants, whether they're in construction or they're other industries. You can help. It's kind of like the other ones that they have the cloud-based thing where a lot of people can work on the same thing. Here's the same. You can upload your planning set, and a lot of people can look at it, give corrections, put markups, and you can designate comments to people on that planning set, and you can keep that as a record of who has been modifying stuff, and then you can upload another planning set, and you can, in the process updates and the whole thing. So if there's one tool here in the construction document and an administration phase that you need to include, it's Bluebeam. it's gonna save you a lot of time, and it just makes the whole process a lot easier. So if you are a user of only Acrobat, I really recommend you to use Bluebeam. Now, the only caveat with Bluebeam, and I think they might have fixed it, is that I think if you are a Mac user, you have to see if it actually works as good as the PC. I know the PC works pretty good, but for Mac users, I feel like it works fine, but you might want to have a test first. You might want to do like a free version and download it and do the free trial that is, I think, for 14 days or 30 days and test it, because I feel like getting like some comments from people that worked with me on some projects that they use Mac. I think the iPad was not great. But I don't recall if the computer was great as far as Mac. I know PC works wonders, it's great, but I don't recall if it's a Mac issue or it's an iPad thing, where if you're using an iPad, then the experience is not that great. But I would encourage you to at least test it. If you use PC, then for sure. Then another tool here is project management. And this comes also with billing and bookkeeping and the whole thing. A tool that I recommend you to kind of look at is Monograph. For instance, in an office that I used to kind of be working with, for billing and everything, they do have BQE Core, which I think is a good one too. But for instance, the last one that I'm using, a lot of people use QuickBooks, and QuickBooks sometimes is not great for bookkeeping, because then you have to link that to Gusto or other platforms. I think Gusto is good, but for instance, Monograph is specifically dedicated for architects and engineers, and it just doesn't have just the bookkeeping, but it also has project management, it has the time tracking, and it has a lot more tools that in our industry it could be very useful. So this is one that I really recommend you to kind of look at too.
To run her practice operations, new project contract was signed over the weekend. After Isabel creates her project, she grabs her Monday morning coffee and dives into Monograph's resource tool. Here, she can get a visualization of her entire team and assign team members to different projects. She starts with automatically allocating hours based on team members' project assignments and then adjusts from there. Week in and week out, this is where Isabel and her team enter their time. Monograph timesheets allow you to log time to a phase by activity and even add expenses to time entries. This enables Isabel to get a crystal clear picture of where each project is at, how each team member is spending their time, and even the financial health of her firm. When it's time to get paid, Isabel's bookkeeper creates invoices straight from Monograph, pulling from all that rich timesheet, milestone, and billing data to bill for the right amount every time. Best practice architects' invoices are clear and well designed, meaning there's rarely back and forth and they get paid on time. Isabel can keep track of invoicing progress and project progress side by side in project financials reports to make sure that all her projects are financially healthy. When it comes to operational intelligence, Isabel is on her game. The projects report allows her to see by month and project if they're spending more fee than they're getting, an obvious red flag. The planned profit report allows her to forecast profit by month and make sure it's trending in the right direction. Profit drivers.
So it's like an Intuit with bookkeeping, but it's specifically dedicated for architects and engineers. And that's the thing I really like, because it does have tools that are specifically for us, and that's something to kind of look at. And the last one here, and this is also more for the construction management and administration, is Procore. Again, it's a cloud-based construction management platform. And it really is good for communication, where you can be for bidding or financial tracking and quality and safety and resource management. I think I have a link we can look at.
All over the world, construction professionals count on the...
Let's go to the project overview.
These products are organized in 4 functional categories with Procore Analytics available across all categories.
And that's kind of what you want to have to keep in mind, is that you have that pre-construction, you have the project management, you have the resource management and the financial management. And you have that whole thing of collaboration here component. And depending on really, if you're like a design build company, as most studios that you still do design build, this is something that you might want to look at. If you are an architecture company that focuses on just design, maybe it's not quite there for you, but if you do design build, I think there's definitely something to kind of look at in Procore. And one of the things that the tools you really need to know is to collaborate digitally. You really want to make sure that you have a cloud component, whether it's Beam Cloud, Autodesk Cloud, incorporated with Speckle, something that you can collaborate either with your inside team or with consultants. So you definitely want to have a cloud-based collaboration source. as I'm saying, like you definitely want to have Bluebeam for this, for you to kind of manage your revisions, red lines with your team. And then the other two, and I will say the other two would be a little bit more optional. Monograph, I don't know what type of billing and time tracking and all that you guys use in your company for a small design company, but I think getting something that is a little bit more focused for the AEC industry, like Monograph and Procore, could be very useful. And that's really all the tools, guys. So that's it for the construction documents and administration phase. So what are my final thoughts on how AI and new technology are changing architecture? So my thoughts are pretty straightforward. I do think that AI and new technology are helping designers to give us superpowers. So in a way, AI and new technologies have helped us innovate, has helped us come with new ways to design, has helped us to, come up with new ideas, has helped improve the communication with clients. And in many ways, it has helped designers and architecture, and I feel like it's an amazing tool. But at the same time, I feel it has a dark side where if we don't use it correctly, it can make us lazier, it can make us less productive. It can feel like design is manufactured rather than actually having a conversation with a client and being handcrafted in a way. So the way I see it is that new technology, just like anything, is like fire, where it could bring us great benefits, but also it can burn us if we don't use it the right way. And those are my final thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next one.